The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 3258. To the author of the bill, the member from Ramsey, Representative Mariani.
Clerk will report the bill.
Excuse me, the clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 3258, number 4 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to public safety, the second engrossment.
To the author of the bill, the member from Ramsey, Representative Mariani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Members, yesterday we passed House File 3156 as the House refused to accept the idea that there is no time when the state of Minnesota cannot carry out its core function of maintaining, providing for the public safety. Today we await for the other body to affirm its duty as well and engage the House to provide for the appropriations to maintain the Department of Public Safety and Corrections. Meanwhile, today, House File 32, Senate File, it's our House File, Senate File 3258 is a modest public safety and corrections policy bill with a small number of good provisions. They are the result of the work of several members who authored separate bills on which we have arrived at agreement with the other body and that all 4 caucuses have signed off on. I thank my colleague, Representative Johnson, for co-authoring this small package of bills, and Representative Bowler for providing the vehicle in which to capture our agreements. Please note, members, that notable policy missing from this bill is House File 3070, Representative Pinto's Human Trafficking Penalties Increase Bill, House File 3453, Representative Edelson's Juvenile Risk Assessments, and my bill, House File 3975, that provides for post-conviction relief for immigrants. For today, however, we have the following provisions. We have House File 3911, Representative Wogelman's bill that prohibits flying drones over Department of Correction facilities, over prisons. We have House File 1149, Representative Christensen bill that expands authority for conservation officers to issue DUIs. We have House File 1714, Representative Zhejiang's bill that eliminates statutory redundancy authorizing Community Corrections Department in Ramsey County that is currently creating a conflict in state law expectation. Ramsey County is now under the Minnesota Community Corrections Act along with other counties. There is also language here that the House Public Safety Committee passed in House File 2711, our COVID response bill, that temporarily allows a waiver to the requirement that state funds to the Youth Intervention Program, or YIPA, be matched with outside funds. Finally, members, there are provisions from both the Department of Corrections and Department of Public Safety, and these are: 1, that background checks be required of outsourced justice agency contractors who have access to criminal history records checks. 2, it requires a correction commissioner to provide feminine hygiene products to those housed in state correctional facilities. And 3, it changes language describing services provided to American Indian inmates from, quote, counseling programs to, quote, cultural programs. That's what's in the bill, members. Note that part of the 4 caucuses two-body agreement also includes 2 bills that are not in this bill before us today, but is part of the agreement. House File 4137, which defines criminal harassment, Representative Pinto's bill, which we acted on a few days ago, and House File 627, also a Representative Pinto bill that establishes procedures for eyewitness identification. We passed those off on the House floor, as I mentioned earlier, and they are part of the agreement with the other body. So members, that's the bill before us, and I ask for your support.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File Number 3258.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. The representative from Monoman, Representative Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Is this on? It's hard to tell when you're talking on it, is it? Okay. Thank
It
you.
is on, Representative Green.
I'm not here today to speak against the bill per se, but I do have some issues with some of the language in it, and it's in Section 3. And this has to deal with the American Indian portion of this. And reading through the language, it's a little disturbing to me that it looks like the language for counseling for American Indians has been removed and replaced with cultural programming or programming of inmates. And I just find it real disturbing that now the commissioner in current law says the Commissioner of Corrections shall develop a policy to provide programming, but the counseling has been removed, and he may pick from American Indian private or nonprofit organizations, but he doesn't have to. And so the adult portion of this, adults can take care of themselves and they will decide whether or not they want to be reprogrammed or not. The issue is with the juveniles. And so I do have a question for Chair Mariani, if he's willing to yield.
Representative Mariani, he will yield. Representative Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Mariani, if the juveniles in either a correctional facility or community-based correctional program are to be programmed or to have programming brought before them, will their parents or legal guardians be consulted in that?
Representative Mariani.
Madam Speaker and Representative Green, I actually don't know the answer to that question. I would imagine that there's nothing that would be provided that would be distinct from any other juvenile in any of our state facilities.
Representative Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I didn't really hear you. The acoustics are not good here, but it sounded like you said you didn't know. This could potentially be harmful. It is at best not good language, at best, and it could be damaging. So I fully assume that this bill is going to pass. I can't support it today, but I will ask for members to think about this, and also want to send out a message to American Indians. If you happen to have somebody in a correctional facility or community-based correctional program, I encourage you very strongly to find out what's being taught, especially to your juvenile children in these facilities, because it does not say here what kind of programming this could be. Could be completely in the opposite direction of where you have raised your children, where you want to see them go. It's just not put together well. So, Madam Speaker, I thank you for the time, and I can't support the bill. Thank you.
The member from Anoka, Representative Runebeck.
Bill would have, am I being heard?
We can hear you, Representative Runebeck.
The language that was rejected by Chair Mariani from this bill would have given national background check authority to our local law enforcement officials. This language would have helped local governments prevent sex trafficking operations, who are very active around our state right now, from receiving a business license. All parties, Senate GOP and DFL, the governor's office, and the House GOP had agreed to include this language brought by the Minnesota Chiefs of Police. It was only Chair Mariani who would not agree to it. And that should dismay everyone, members, all of us and everyone in our state. Thank you for the chance to make my comments.
Further discussion.
Madam Speaker.
Representative Johnson.
Madam Speaker, members, I want to talk about an important provision in this bill. In 2018, the FBI identified a gap in our background check authority for people who have access to the Department of Public Safety Criminal Justice Data Communication Network. Under the current law, employees of non-criminal justice agencies who have access to the network to review data and determine another person's eligibility for employment, housing, licenses, or other legal rights must have a fingerprint, state, and national background check done. But contractors of these agencies are not included in this requirement. Section 6 of this bill adds that requirement that contractors for non-criminal justice agencies must have a fingerprint, both state and national background checks done. The addition of this language will comply with the FBI's National Crime Prevention and Policy Council requirements, putting the state of Minnesota back in line with those requirements. The Department of Public Safety recognizes the importance of making sure people who have access to this sensitive information have background checks done on them. Now, unfortunately, there's a couple things that were left out of this bill. One is Representative Runbeck's bill that would have allowed local government access to the national background checks information so they can deny a license to known sex trafficking operations which are coming into our state. Currently, they can do the background checks for in-state only, and they cannot do it for, cannot check the rest of the country. Now, also not included in this bill, which was another portion that was supported by our chiefs and our sheriffs who brought these things forward, would be Representative Pinto's bill that would have allowed law enforcement agencies to have a broader access to information from former employees for non-sworn officers applicants. Sometimes an employee will be dismissed from a job for cause that does not rise to the level of criminal charges filed. I understand this in my family's business. We had to let a person go because we actually caught them doing theft, but we did not charge them. We just terminated their position. And a complete background check that's done for the rest of the officers, this would show up because they do go back and talk to the former employees. Now, law enforcement agencies have access to a lot of very sensitive data. And it's critical that the information on the applicants that would impact their decision to hire somehow. Now, it's unfortunate that Chair Mariani did not support these two, but that was his decision. However, the bill does have some very key safety items in the bill, including the contractor background checks for Criminal Justice Data Communication Network, prohibiting the flying of unmanned aerial devices or drones over our prisons where contraband could be dropped in, and allowing our conservation officers who run across intoxicated people at the boat landings to be able to enforce the DWI laws when they're backing their vehicles up to load their boats. For these reasons, I support this bill and I ask a yes vote. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I have served on the Public Safety Committee, and I have observed there's evil in the world. It's crafty, creative, and oftentimes we have to make tweaks and adjustments in our statutes and our laws. I've worked with Representative Pinto on a few of these in regards to human trafficking. I am disappointed that we are not including additional tools to help local government to prevent, groups that I frankly see as evil. and they don't play by the rules, and if they're crafty in finding loopholes. And I just hope in the future we'll have the opportunity to do a better job at taking care of and closing the loopholes and supporting our local government in their efforts to protect our citizens. Thank you.
To the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I did want to speak quickly to the Section 3 in the bill regarding American Indian cultural programming. This actually is as simple as it sounds. It's not changing any of the resources or services offered to Indigenous inmates. It just changes the word counseling to cultural programming. And this came about after consultation with tribal governments and at their request that cultural programming would better reflect those services that are offered to inmates. Just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further discussion? To the author of the bill, Representative Mariani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, members. And quite frankly, I appreciate the disappointment that's being shared by a couple of members here on the body floor today. I'm also disappointed. I'm disappointed that a very healthy public safety corrections agenda that our committee worked, at times even in a bipartisan manner, were provisions that weren't even considered by the other body throughout the entire session, even though there were authors in the other body of the majority party on many of these provisions. There were no hearings held on a number of those. It was a very minimalist approach to meeting our duties for public safety. And so by the time you get to the point where we got to, excuse me, which was to arrive at a bill that would be a policy bill that had the agreement of all four caucuses, the list of bills that the other body would consider was pretty small. It was pretty small because they didn't do their work to listen to bipartisan bills. And so I'm disappointed as well. There's so many good things that we've worked on. I mentioned three of them at the beginning of my presentation. Representative Quam, I totally hear you. You also had a provision in our committee that we heard that I thought was and I think members thought was pretty righteous. That did not meet the conditions of the other body in order to get to this point of presenting this bill. And let me just say, quickly, Representative Rumbeck, and I'm going to be pretty strong on this, quite frankly. It's important to be truthful on the House floor. So I'm going to assume that you thought you were being truthful when you told this body that the only person, the only individual that objected to your bill was me, and that everybody else, the four caucuses, all agreed. Nothing could be further from the truth. One of our caucuses, the one that I'm a member of, talked about all of these provisions, and we had serious misgivings with the construct of your bill. Your bill was heard in local gov last year, and local government raised a number of questions that to this day are still not answered. Sometimes it takes a while for us to properly get bill proposals shaped up in a way that can meet our high standards of good quality legislation. I had a bill once that took me 10 years to pass the DREAM Act in this state. And part of that was because we were working out all sorts of technical challenges that bill raised. Your bill raises a number of technical challenges that simply cannot be accepted in a quick four-party agreement framework like the one that we had over the course of the last month. So, if you and I are both back here next year, I'd be glad to continue to work with you on that provision. But there is a real good reason why your bill was not before us today. It didn't even meet the muster that the other body established for us to consider bills because your bill never made it through our Public Safety Committee. So members, interesting conversation and debate. I think what I'm hearing is that folks are not objecting to the bill before us, that folks are expressing the disappointment that is inevitable at the end of any session. But let's not let that take away from the merits of the good provisions that are in the bill before us today. I would encourage your support.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright. Albright, no. Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer.
Backer, aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner.
Bonner, aye.
Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, pass. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Becker, Finn. Becker, Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi. Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow.
Bow, aye.
Bow, aye. Brand.
Brand, aye.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Doubt. Excused. Davids. Davids, aye. Davney. Davney, aye. Dean.
Dean, aye.
Dean, aye. Damath. Damath, aye. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Dreskowski. Dreskowski, aye. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson.
Edelson, aye.
Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson. Erickson, aye. Fabian. Fabian, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, aye.
Franzen, aye. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, aye.
Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Green, no.
Green, no. Grossel.
Grossel, aye.
Grossel, aye. Grunhagen.
Grunhagen, aye.
Grunhagen, aye. Gunther.
Gunther, aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley.
Haley, aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson.
Halverson, aye.
Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Heinzman.
Heinzman, aye.
Heinzman, aye. Her.
Her, aye.
Her, aye. Hertos.
Hertos, aye.
Hertos, aye. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Johnson, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn.
Cleavorn, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Katiza Watun.
Katiza Watun, aye.
Katiza Watun, aye. Kosnick.
Cosmic, aye.
Kosnick, aye. Kreshaw.
Grisha, aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Kunish Podine. Kunish Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee. Lee, aye. Lesh.
Lesh, aye.
Lesh, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Lislegard, excused. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero. Lucero, aye. Lewick.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
Mahoney, aye.
Mahoney, aye. Mann.
Man, aye.
Mann, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Markwart.
Markwart, aye.
Markwart, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Mecklin.
Meckland, aye.
Mecklin, aye. Miller.
Miller, aye.
Miller, aye. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison.
Morrison, aye.
Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, aye.
Munson, aye. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash. Nash, aye. Nelson, M.
Nelson M, aye.
Nelson, M, aye. Nelson, N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson, N, aye. New. New, aye. Nor.
Nor, aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny.
Nevada, aye.
Novotny, aye. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, aye. Olson. Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, aye.
O'Neill, aye. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam.
Quam, aye.
Quam, aye. Richardson.
Richardson, aye.
Richardson, aye. Robbins.
Robbins, aye.
Robbins, aye. Runbeck.
Runback, aye.
Runbeck, aye. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Samstead, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauk.
Falk, aye.
Sauk, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott. Scott, aye. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye. Tabke.
Tedke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice.
Tice, aye.
Tice, aye. Torkelson. Torkelson. Erdahl. Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Vang, aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, aye.
Vogel, aye. Wagenius.
Wagenius, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Waslowick.
Wadsworth, aye.
Waslowick, aye. West.
West, aye.
West, aye. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott, aye.
Wolgamott, aye. Zhang Che. Zhang Jie. Zhang Ti.
Young T, aye.
Zhang Ti, aye. Joachim. Joachim, aye. Speaker Hortman, excused. Barr. Barr, aye. Doubt. Doubt, aye. Torkelson. Torkelson.
aye.
Torkelson, aye.
Torkelson, aye.
Zhang Jie. Zhang Jie.
There being 130 ayes and 2 nays, the bill passes and its title agreed to.